says that we are live.
Yes, that takes some time. Maybe it's more than some time. Wait. Okay, we're live.
Okay, welcome everyone. Nice to welcome you all to this session organized by EuroACE. My name is Clémence Arto. I'm the head of government affairs at Autodesk for Europe. Just in a few words about Autodesk, we're a global company. We provide digital technologies to professionals of the construction sector to better design and build, for instance, 3D modeling, data collaboration platforms, digital twins, and so on. But today I speak to you on behalf of EuroACE. EuroACE is an association that seeks to foster the energy renovation of buildings. And EuroACE has been organizing, next slide please, been campaigning for some time already to, actually have an ambitious approach of energy efficiency of buildings. EuroACE was created in 1998 by the leading companies in Europe involved in manufacturing, distribution, installation of energy-saving goods and services. We are a proud member of EuroACE, and I'm really happy that EuroACE is hosting this session as part of the European Energy Sustainability Week. And it's my pleasure to welcome our amazing panel. But before we get to that, I want to say a few words to set the scene of this session and explain to you why we, maybe a few words to say about the membership of EuroACE. Of course, my fellow corporations, members of EuroACE, those are just a little bit of the companies. You can see there are companies that manufactures products for buildings, companies that manufacture digital technologies and develop software to better operate buildings. So I think we're bridging here the traditional ways of buildings and the new ways of building, all of that to better, to make sure that buildings are more sustainable in the future. Apologies for this. So let's move on to the next slide and set the scene for this discussion. We all know that we have an energy crisis today and looming in the next months. We also know that buildings are a substantial users of energy. We have an aging building stock and an increasing need for buildings. So how do we reconcile all those elements? One way, and that's what we believe at EuroACE, is to think ahead and to plan for the future. We absolutely need resilient buildings to help us face climate change and to help prevent and address future energy crises. We know also that in this future of buildings, digitalization and data-based solution will be key. We actually have the tools, but we need to use them. We need to plan ahead for the long term and also start using those tools as early as possible. We can plan, design, build and operate buildings in a more sustainable way. We can optimize energy use at every step of the way. We believe that the ambition expressed in the Repower EU plan can and should be translated in the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, also called EPBD, and that this directive currently being discussed is a huge opportunity to deliver and accelerate on energy efficiency of buildings in Europe. So to discuss this today, I am very happy to welcome this amazing panel to help us, plan ahead. As you will see, we have the pleasure to hear from both the policymakers, MEP Sean Kelly, who unfortunately had to travel today, but he very kindly sent us a video intervention that we will listen in a second. We have Daniela Bachner from the CINEA, European Commission Funding Programs for Energy Transition, and then we'll hear from member states and from the people who actually implement initiatives to better understand our building stock, to better gather data about the building's energy use, and to collect and assess and use those data to better plan for the future. So I'm really happy to welcome you all. And let's start by watching what MEP Sean Kelly, who is also a shadow rapporteur for EPBD, has to say to us. Hello, everyone. It seems that we have a tiny bit of an IT issues. Those live events would not be complete without some IT issues. So I beg your pardon and I ask you to wait a couple of minutes until we fix it. Okay, so it seems that we have a lasting IT issues, the difficulty of having two different platforms. I hope everyone can hear me still. And so, well, we're gonna have to switch to our speakers, but before that, maybe because I had the pleasure to listen to Chantilly, and of course, we will make sure that the participants get the video that we can upload it on the platform. But in a few words, what MEP Sean Kelly wanted to share is that we indeed need to plan in advance and to involve as many stakeholders as possible. It's not just about policymakers, it's not just about building owners or contractors, constructors. It's also about how we get the right funding, how we gather the right data, because we need to measure. We can't reduce what we can't measure. So this is an important point that I noted from Mr. Sean Kelly's intervention, and I want to ask Mrs. Brachner to come in to be able to share on presentation. Thank you, Daniela, for being quick to respond. So talking about funding, can you tell us a little bit more about the program you manage for, energy transition and supporting digitalization in Europe, please?
Thank you very much for the introduction, Clémence. And I think I can very well relate to what MEP Shawkani tried to say. I will give you a glimpse of what we do at the Climate, Infrastructure and Environment Executive Agency, in short, EMEA. First slide, no, the previous slide, please. So, both related to long-term renovation strategies, but also digitalization in order to support projects and feed the experiences from those projects back into evidence-based policy making. EMEA manages a wide range of different funding projects which are linked to the European Green Deal for the European Commission. For example, parts of Horizon Europe, the Innovation Fund, parts of the Connecting Europe facility, as well as the LIFE program for which I represent today. So in a nutshell, we fund projects that move the market or research in a specific field forward and provide feedback from these projects back to the relevant stakeholders in the European Commission, which then develop the policies. In my short intervention today, I would like to give you some examples how digitalization and the underlying data of the built environment provides opportunities for the different stakeholders, and I will stay on a rather overarching broad level. So we won't go into very details in terms of simulation tools or so on, but we would really focus on the overarching level. Next slide, please. Exactly, thank you. So what MEP Shawkani tried to already refer to is the key pieces of the climate and energy legislation, which are the EPBD, the Energy Efficiency Directive, and the Renewable Energy Directive. All three of them are undergoing revisions as part of the Fit for 55 package to implement the European Green Deal. Just to mention that also the Energy Efficiency Directive puts energy efficiency across all sectors into the spotlight with binding targets, but it also includes the exemplary role of public authorities with respect to building renovation and the achievement of nearly zero energy buildings. So also in the EED, there is this reference to the building sector, but clearly the European Performance of Buildings Directive, the EPBD, is the key piece which relates to energy performance building data. And the revision of this EPBD, which is currently, or which has been already this year discussed in the European Parliament, but also in the Council of the Energy Ministers, has several important changes to deliver the headline targets of doubling the renovation rate, achieving the renovation targets, and implementing deeper energy renovations in the European building stock. First, it contains a proposal to introduce mandatory minimum energy performance standards also to existing buildings. Second, it contains a proposal on building renovation passports and a deep renovation definition. So to really go towards staged renovation and this deep renovation. Thirdly, the long-term renovation strategies would evolve to building renovation plans and increase in importance. And fourth, the EPBD revision draft also has a strong focus on smartness, on smart readiness of buildings, and there are now included a specific article on data access for users and the exchange of data between member states. And there is also an article on the databases for energy performance of buildings with a reference to the EU building stock. And I will come to that a bit later. So as a conclusion for this revision of the key legislative pieces, you can see that the building renovation receives an even stronger role in the legislation, and building performance data is key in order to strive for ambition and to assess the compliance with the climate targets. Next slide, please. Thank you. Many different organizations and topics are working on data initiatives, be it data collection, new data analysis approaches, data platforms, or services linked to that data. But why? Which data and how does it work? First, next slide, please. I would like to focus on the why. So the benefits to the different data users. If we split the different stakeholder groups into three main groups, which are the building owners, financial institutions, and the policymakers, it has benefits to make use of that vast data which is available for different reasons and different aspects. So for the building owners, it's clearly to monitor better the energy use of a building and to verify the implementation of energy efficiency improvement measures, for example. But it also provides opportunity to do benchmarking within a portfolio or with others, to have a decision support tool to strive towards energy, but also cost savings then, and to derive evidence-based recommendations for the other stakeholder groups. When it comes to the financial institutions, which play a key role in the implementation of the European Green Deal, you will remember that the European Commission focuses very much on the role of private finance to implement the investments necessary for the implementation of the Green Deal. For the financial institutions, data is essential to do the evaluation and monitoring of finance projects, but also to provide benchmarking and more, also to fulfill reporting obligations related to the ESGs and to the EU taxonomy. And thirdly, for the policymakers, database is crucial to do performance tracking, to assess if the targets, the policy targets are achieved, and as a database for future policy and program development. For example, to develop targeted funding schemes for renovation target areas, for example. So this overview is coming from one of our projects, which is AND-TRACK, and I would like to move on to the next slide, please. Because I would like to give you an overview of what we already have in place. So this is the EU Building Stock Observatory, which is a central tool for data evidence on the European building stock. So we have a central repository with information on the building stock, which allows to search for information, and it combines data from different sources. For example, the official statistics, so Eurostat, but also different research projects and different reports, both on a European level and on a national level. This database or the repository supports the monitoring of the impact of the implementation of the EPBD, and the relevant articles of the EED and Renewable Energy Directive. It covers a broad range of energy-related topics and provides information on the building stock, the energy consumption, the building elements and technical building systems installed, but also energy performance certificates, nearly zero energy buildings, the renovation rates, but also aspects such as energy poverty or financing aspects. So you have really a wide variety of different data which is fed into the repository, and it is composed of almost 250 main indicators. It's currently undergoing renovation. So we have a revamp in 2023. And the call for tenders has been closed last week, and now the evaluation has started of these offers, and so we expect to have a new service contract in place next year to really move forward with an update of the observatory and the revamp. One of the projects we are financing, which feeds into this building stock observatory, is the Build Hub. So if you would move on to the next slide, please. And this project dedicates all its efforts to building a stakeholder group of data users and data providers. So data subjects in principle, and develop a roadmap on how to better feed in building data into the EU Building Stock Observatory. because clearly not all the data points which are in this huge observatory are filled at the moment. So an improved data collection approach is needed to regularly update this data and to keep it up to date and to fill the existing data gaps. What BuildHub also does is that it has designed, it has set up a data hub where the stakeholders can provide and access data of the stakeholder group. So they can share the data, and the project also develops services based on that building data within the hub to bring most benefits to the user groups. In addition to BuildHub, there have been a couple of other projects launched in recent years, which focus on a big data approach to fill the data gaps in the building stock observatory, but also to develop a reference architecture for the data collection. So to really have a template how the data should look like in order to make best use of the existing building data, because there are tons of data out there, but sometimes the data structure doesn't fit to each other well, and therefore the reference architecture for the building data is crucial. Those projects also develop big data tools, perform statistical analysis, provide data visualizations, and business intelligence. If you move on to this next slide, please. I would just like to give you a glimpse of how we proceed. So our current call for proposals is still open until 16th of November this year. And what we do with our call topics is to advance the implementation of the new legislation, and then also feedback into the further development of policy from very general topics to very specific topics, and all are in one way or another related to the building, to buildings and the built environment. So for example, as you can see the first line, there is a specific topic to support the market uptake of deep renovation, but there is also a topic to advance further the smart readiness indicator in the building sector, to support the market uptake of heat pumps, or also this district heating sector, so to have the energy supply side. But then there are also dedicated topics for policy implementation to support the member states in the national implementation of the new legislation and to foster exchange between the member states. So as you can see, some topics are really more on a general EU-wide basis, others are really specific to one specific part of the market. And then there is a variety of topics which support building renovation, of course. Many of those also then again provide data and feed the data into the different platforms which are available. What we can see is that there are tons of data available in many of the projects, and there is also very high demand for using this data in order to develop dedicated tools and to take evidence-based decisions in order to move towards an energy and cost-efficient building sector. However, what we also see is that the willingness to share existing building data is not always very prominent, which limits then the possibilities for analysis and application of this data. And this is mainly due to unsolved questions related to security, data protection, but also ownership and so on. But I'm sure that we will hear more about that from our other speakers today, which provide more information on very specific applications. So I will post then, oh no, you cannot see the chat probably. You will have the link to our websites, and you will also receive the link to the funding and tender portal of the European Commission, where you can look up these different call topics and receive further information to them. Thanks a lot for your attention, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Daniela. Indeed, I went on the Life website, and so that Life is 30 years old, which is quite a nice birthday to celebrate. And indeed, when we look at the current calls for funding, it's very much aligned with the EPBD. You know, talking about smart readiness indicator, energy performance certificate, zero emission buildings, everything that is packaged in this directive, and that aims to take the whole building stock one step further. So thank you very much for your presentation. And now we are turning to concrete cases, you know, regions or member states having started to implement this sort of data repository or gathering. And I want to start with Mr. Hakim Lalou, who is Innovation Director at Banque des Territoires, Caisse des Dépôts in France, to talk about the big flagship project called Prio Reno. It's your turn, Hakim.
Thank you, Clémence. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Clémence, for the introduction. I'm very glad to be here today for this roundtable, and very glad indeed to have the opportunity to present to you how we will accelerate thermal renovation of public buildings in France thanks to data, and more precisely thanks to Prio Reno, which is a French public law tech for good dedicated to facilitating local decision of renovation. And then, what is Prio Reno? It's a new and a totally free access and concrete method. It's a new French public policy approach enhanced by 2,000 gigabytes of data with the goal to facilitate local politics decision about thermal sieves renovation among the 500,000 French public buildings. And Prio Reno automatically identifies buildings which represent a renovation priority based on data on each building, on each one, and on actual energy consumption, which are automatically at disposal, and it does not have to be filled locally, and it's fundamental in the Prio Reno's value proposition, with mapping that allows local discussion with citizens about the renovation strategy. So why Prio Reno, and what the strategic purpose behind it? Prio Reno's approach, the next slide please, has been developed because, first of all, the reality and the volumes of renovation in the territories underlines the fact that we are today in a better trend than in the past, but still very far from public policy ambitions despite the climate urgency. And secondly, among the obstacles to local decision making, there is a significant lack of knowledge about the building stock for each territory. The majority of local authorities having no or limited expertise in-house for this knowledge, why it is the very first step to the decision. And thirdly, to have this knowledge about all the buildings, we know that the engineering and data collection costs are important, leading many local authorities to temporize the decision of launching engineering studies and thus actual renovation. And it is therefore of high importance to give to local authorities a key-turn first vision of its building stock and pre-identification of the 10 to 20% of potential thermal sieves to motivate them to launch studies and then start renovation. And with Prio Reno, we have this conviction that no need to postpone, since the first step towards renovation is quite easy. And it's based on those elements that Prio Reno has for main purpose to remove major obstacles to local decision making by first providing for free and in a key-turn approach to elected officials a first level vision of their buildings in their territory, its characteristic, its kind of use, and of course its real level of energy consumption in electricity and gas, building by building. Secondly, with an indicative prioritizing of the buildings to be renovated, and therefore suggesting which studies to focus on to limit the cost. And thirdly, offering a simple interface allowing local debates with citizens about these complex issues. And to conclude that first part, I would say that PRIORENO is a new way for territories of implementing public policies thanks to data and AI, because it removes certain obstacles to the local decision to renovate, and because it allows engineering resources to be concentrated, to be focused on top priority buildings for free and in a kitchen approach. Perfect for the slide, thank you. Okay, so, but PRIORENO, thanks to whom? PRIORENO is based on a strong partnership between the Banque des Territoires Groupe Caisse des Dépôts, Enedis, GRDF, and the French state, with 2 ministers having signed the dedicated agreement. And it only makes sense through the unique contribution and expertise of each one, with Banque des Territoires as a major financial institution and trusted third party, which provide its unique platform with its bank level identification system, making it possible to provide and process sensitive data under GDPR in a secure context, available to all local authorities through our current activity, and all this permitting, therefore, a duplicable approach to many other public policies. Of course, obviously, Enedis and GRDF, major players in the French energy sector in electricity and gas, which are essential in the construction of PRIORENO with their capacity to deploy the automated supply of data on consumption for each building, thanks to dedicated APIs, and their knowledge and expertise in the energy field, and of course the French state, since in addition to the public policies guidelines provided by the state and its support for the system PRIORENO, it will bring it to the communities thanks to its network of decentralized services. And this alliance is a new way to materialize and animate an ecosystem around a public policy by combining actors with a mission of general interest from the public to the private sector around the data and AI device to remove certain obstacles to renovation. So how does it work? And let's go to the next slide, please. In fact, PRIORENO is based on 2,000 gigabytes of geographical data. Among them, we have a lot of data. We have the entirety of the French landfills, for example. We have aerial images which are processed using algorithms based on learning methods. We have access to data on real energy consumption for each building, etc. And PRIORENO algorithms permits to cross-examine those geographical data with heterogeneous level of geographical quality. And it's the main point. All the innovation and the complexity of PRIORENO, totally transparent for the user, come from the fact that it has to improve the heterogeneous quality of the data consumed to maximize the creation of value at the building level. So if you agree, let's take a look at a short video we have about PRIORENO, which have been deployed on the Banque des Territoires platform in July. It is coming. And in fact, in a few clicks, the community can better understand its building stock and the characteristic of each of them, with indicative prioritizing of the building for which a study must be launched. So we have some images of Priorino launched on Banque des Territoires platform in July. And we will complete this technical vision of the building stock by a few data of importance, such as, for example, the solar potential building by building, estimated by the French startup EMEA, whose expertise in deep learning to generate data for territories is deeply recognized. And ultimately, like what we saw, from the moment the community has given its agreements for the transmission of energy consumption data by Enedis and GRDF, all the computations are carried out on servers and made available in a few minutes, effortlessly and for free. Okay, but I think that at this stage, your question is now, okay, but is it reliable? In fact, we're at the very beginning of this story, but what can I tell you so far on the results and perspectives? First of all, about the quality. We performed an experimentation with 60 territories and their experts, and they clearly validated Priorino's prioritizations based on their knowledge of their own building stocks. On top of that, we have a beautiful city in France, Grasse, which is well known for perfume, with which we have co-financed 2 years ago an engineering study on their about the renovation of their school buildings, and for which we have all the results. 120,000 euros and 10 months. And in fact, with Priorino, we got exactly the same top 10 buildings to renovate in priority in a few seconds and for free. So the quality of Priorino is quite high enough to specifically and automatically point the buildings for which renovation studies have to be launched in priority, and we have this conviction that the impact on local decision will be clear. And on the last slide, furthermore, we opened the application in July, and the high level of interest has been clearly confirmed with 1,600 applications at the beginning of September. And we have a lot of exciting perspective, but I see that I'm too short on time to develop it. So to conclude, we hope that Priorino will give some ideas for other European countries. And last but not least, I invite you to listen to the point of view of one of our important users for 2 minutes. And of course, I will be at your entire disposal for questions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hakim. Sorry, everyone, that the video had no sound. We're still navigating between the platforms that we have to use for this session. Thank you very much. Clearly, we know how much the local authorities play a key role in reaching the climate objectives, especially in the building sector, and giving them access, like you did with Prio Reno, to meaningful data about the building stock is just very impressive. It's also, I must say, one step forward in the direction of the EPBD recast. The Article 19, I believe, wants each member state to create a database, sort of repository for energy efficiency data, and then to transfer them into the EU observatory that Daniela was mentioning just before. So clearly, everything is connecting. And I'm super happy that you presented to us this solution, Hakim. Let's turn now to another solution that is being tested as we speak in a different region. We're moving to Flanders with Roel Vermeeren, who's going to present to us the Woning Pass that was created and implemented in the region. Floor is yours, Roel.
Thank you very much. So I'm working with the Flemish Energy and Climate Agency on the long-term renovation strategy. And one of the crucial tools in this strategy is the building passport. We call it in Dutch the Woning Pass. Next slide, please. I'm just going to give a brief introduction in this tool. The why, the challenge we are meeting with this tool, the roadmap we had the last couple of years, and then at the end a small look into the Woning Pass. Next slide, please. So why did we develop this building passport? The main thing is to minimize the administrative burdens during the life events of a building. So the actual building of the building, but also the renovation, and also the moment where buildings are sold. So we like to integrate all the certificates that are needed for these actual moments during the building's life. And then we would like to give the owner and the buyer a view and an advice on all the relevant building aspects, especially the ones that are linked to the long-term renovation strategy and the goal that is there for each individual building, but also other issues. I will talk about them a bit later. And very interesting to mention is also that this building passport was a co-creation. It was not only our idea or our development from the Flemish Energy and Climate Agency, but we got a lot of help from the colleagues of the Department of Environment, also the Housing Department, and even the Waste Department. And so we can talk about a real co-creation activity, and also the budget was divided under these partners. Next slide, please. So the challenge was to build a free digital passport that was automatically compiled for the homeowner, who can ultimately also share it with others, with third parties. So information includes different topics. We would like to share it in one platform, and we use user experience design to build it, because if you build something that's not user-friendly, then the success isn't guaranteed. So in the picture at the right side, you can see this actual databases that are used to fill the building passport. So actually we're sharing government data from various sources. So the building passport is not a new overall database. It's just like you could say a digital interface that's plugging all these underlying data from these various sources in a very user-friendly way. Next slide, please. So we were able to develop it in that way, and I will talk a little bit about the roadmap that we had since the beginning. So end of 2018 was the launch. Then we had in 2019 already a second version. Then there are various in-between developments and also future plans. Next slide, please. So in the beginning, the building passport contained some general building information, of course, the address, some data on energy, on insulation, the installations, the solar potential, and some maps of the surroundings. So we called it a light version, especially since it was it was in the beginning like a passive set of data, but from the beginning it was the ultimate goal to have it in like a more interactive or dynamic tool. So that's why in 2019 we already came up with a new dashboard to make it more user-friendly. We had also the mobile-friendly version, so you can also consult it on a mobile phone. And we also introduced the Mobi score, which is basically a monitoring tool or an indication of the mobility of a single building. Then already in November 2019, we included the building permits, which are in another database stocked, but which could be viewed within the boarding pass as well. And we also included a feedback tool within the building passport. And that's basically the work of our live project, Be Real, that's working on various parts of the renovation strategy, but the actual development of the building passport is also one of these actions. And yeah, we included a feedback knob within the boarding pass, and with this knob we managed to have a lot of user impressions, and they were used to further develop the tool. Next slide, please. So then we moved to 2020. So essentially, to know is in the warning pass, there's also the energy performance certificate. So it is included within the warning pass. So the owner can consult this energy performance certificate. And it's also including the advice to renovate the building towards the long-term goal 2050. And you can see it in this, these labels at the top side. And yeah, I know these are just some illustrations, but the figure is showing the works that need to be carried out for this typical building to reach the long-term goals. And it's also giving a direct link towards the grants that are available for these works. Then in April 2020, also the soil certificates got in, and also very important, the possibility to share the building passport with third persons, because the building passport is basically an individual tool. It's for the building owner. It's free, so basically he or she can open up the building passport in a digital way with digital ID or other tools. And from April 2020, it was also possible to share it with third persons like an architect, building contractors, your bank, other renovation advice schemes, and name it. Then in November 2020, we also linked another tool. It's the Check Your Energy label tool, and that's basically meant for situations where there's not an energy performance certificate available. These owners can easily, within the warning pass, have a simulation of the EPC, and it gives them an indication of the energy performance of the building and a benchmark with similar buildings within the region they're living. Then in December 2020, we also had a functionality added with that gives an overview of the renovation works that are carried out for this building. and also a tool to directly applicate for the grants for renovation, for energy renovation works. Next slide, please. Yeah, now we went on, beginning 2021. We also included a check tool for the dwelling quality that was developed by our colleagues of the housing department. And that gives, in a few clicks, an overview of the basic quality feature of the building. It's very interesting tool for buildings that are in a bad shape, and these data needs to be included when you're making up a renovation decision. Then in March 2021, also the water installation inspection data were included, also the sewers, and always in a user-friendly way, showing it in a map, showing the location of the building. And then another very important step was June 21, when there was included a digital save where the owner can load up his or her own things like plans, documents, you name it. Was very interesting because it's more a dynamic tool since this phase. Next slide, please. Then we're moving to 2022. We also made a warning pass for companies, including in this spring the energy metering and consumption. That's very important as well, but it took a long time to have it included in the building passport. Also, yeah, if there are solar panels on the building, some additional data on water. Then in June, also a feature which make it feasible, make it possible to share the warning pass publicly. So, for instance, if you want to sell your house, you can open up your warning pass for a certain moment, for a certain period, to the public in general. And also the advice of the energy performance certificate was updated to make it more user-friendly. We also have certificates on asbestos. We can also push information towards the owner of the building passport with notifications, and also adding all the renovation works. So the building owner can add some certificates or some documents on the renovation works, but also if there are grants issued, then these are included in an overview. And then, yeah, working together with other colleagues, we also included the green-blue label, which is telling something about the risk of flood in this neighborhood. Next slide, please. So basically, it's an ever-growing tool. You can include very much data in it, but we are also a bit careful not to overload it, and that's why we always are following the user experience methods. So we would like to include only this data that are really useful for the user. Then to conclude, a little look at the warning pass, just showing some screens and some parts of it. So it contains relevant data and advice. Basically, it is the energy performance certificate and the distance from the long-term renovation goal. And immediately there are this advice is linked with the different steps you need to take. And if there is another one of these works carried out, it will be included in the warning pass. So it's really a dynamic tool. It's also giving some information about the parcel and the surroundings. There on the right side, you see also the solar map. We also have a solar map linked to the warning pass. So for each building, you can see right away if the roof is suitable for solar panels. Next slide, please. And then also the relevant certificates and grants. That's another part of the building passport. Like for instance, at the right side, you see a list of certificates that is needed, for instance, when you want to sell the house. So the building passport is giving you the information, what is needed, and where you can find these certificates. And mostly these certificates are included in the building passport. And also the digital safe is also a very important one. At the left side, the left picture is just showing the actual energy performance, and underneath the steps you need to take with a direct link to the grant application. Next slide, please. Yeah, and then we also have to make it attractive on the visual level. For very much of these items, also some maps. For instance, on the soil, for instance, on the heritage aspects of buildings, and also about the risk of flooding. Next slide, please. So yeah, it would have been very interesting to have a real demo, but it's not possible within this form. But nevertheless, you could, if you're interested, go to this site and have insights in a demo. It is in Dutch, of course, but it gives you a more concrete insight and feel of yeah, how the Woningbouw is working and what are the different aspects and topics included. So thank you very much. Next slide, please. That's basically it. If there are any questions, I could answer them, of course, later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Roel. As you say, we'll have a session of Q&A just after our last intervention. I have to say, so we spoke about, providing data to local authorities and now to building owners. And, when you're an owner of a building and you have to renovate it, I must say, I would love to have this type of passport. It's a mix between a digital building logbook, renovation passport, and I love the fact that it includes the energy performance certificate. It's really a great initiative, and I think we're gonna have a third example of this type of initiative coming this time from Greece with Mrs. Alice Korovesi, who's the managing director at the Institute of Zero Energy Buildings. This institute is our Greek national partner of the Renovate Europe campaign. But this project that Mrs. Korovesi will present is broader than this. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you, Alice.
Thank you, Clémence. I hope you can hear me well. So greetings from Greece. I will present some information about the building renovation passport and what the aim of these passports are, while I will present also some outcomes of the two projects, IB-Road and IB-Road to EPC, that our organization is engaged to, two projects that have been and are funded under the Horizon 2020 framework. In the next slide, so an overview of what we will discuss, getting familiar with the building renovation passports and the EPBD, the heritage that we have from the IB-Road project, which ran from 2017 until 2020, and now we have the evolution of the IB-Road, which is the IB-Road to EPC project, a project running since last year. This month, September 2022, we have entered the second year of the project. So I will present you what we're going to do. In the next slide. So just a few things. I'm sure that the majority of our audience is familiar with the building renovation passport. So we're talking and we're discussing about a document that can provide or will provide a tailored roadmap for the renovation of a specific building in several steps that will significantly improve the energy performance of the building. This is, let's say, the official definition of what a building renovation passport is. The Building Innovation Passport actually outlines the long-term perspective, 15 to 20 years, the step-by-step renovation for a specific building. And also the document results from an on-site energy audit while meeting the specific quality criteria and indicators. To my personal opinion, I think that Building Innovation Passport is an excellent tool that can mobilize also the private investments. And it's a tool that gives the opportunity to the owners, to the building owners, to understand why their building should be renovated and why the building owner should not rely only to public money for renovation. So it's a new, let's say, introduction between the building and the building owner. In the next slide, we can see here that we have the Building Innovation Passport. It can be considered as a very dynamic system. We give data, so the input can be various building information, data from implementing renovation and conversions that happened in the past, building plans, EPC data if available, energy consumption and production, other indicators as the comfort and health measurements, climate information, and more. The list cannot be limited to the information I'm providing here, but this is something that can be evaluated country by country. What we have as an output is a digital logbook, which includes the building information, tailored innovation roadmap, data from the supply chain, information for the available funding sources and intensives, information about the benefits of energy efficiency measures implementation, and of course more information that can be considered as outputs. And again, this depends on the organizations or the countries of what information they want to provide to the public and to the building owners. In the next one, the benefits. This is something very important because we understand that the stakeholder map is wide. It's not only the benefits for the households or the building owners, but we have also benefits for the national governments, because building innovation passports can enable a higher volume of retrofits in the countries. And also this way, the passports can support the national targets that have been set. And of course, those targets, on the other hand, support the EU targets that have been established. On the other hand, we have the technical professionals. So building innovation passports, the platforms can create commercial opportunities for energy and retrofit professionals, but also those can provide the baseline information for the buildings, meaning saving time and informing for future work. The real estate community, the real estate agents can understand the correlation between the property values and energy efficient and sustainable buildings. This is something which has started as a discussion a few years ago, how the building value is connected to the energy efficiency and sustainability factors and indicators. So again, this building innovation passports can be a good example and a good exercise for the real estate community. The financial institutions, there are new opportunities for customer engagement, but also there is an opportunity to launch financial products that can be tailored to the needs of individual properties. And last, for the valuers, the building innovation passports can identify and mitigate risk when we assess the portfolio and asset levels. In the next one, we can see here the connection with EPBD. It was already presented how the building innovation passports are connected to the revision of the EPBD, and what we have here, we have some novelties, EPC updates and renovation definitions, the inclusion of building innovation passports, the inclusion of minimum energy performance standards, and the whole life carbon considerations. In the next one. So let's go to the projects, the IBRO project, which, as I mentioned, started in 2017 and ended in 2020, a project funded by the Horizon 2020 funding framework. The aim was that we wanted to prove that a plan can help. So we have on the one hand the holistic renovation process, on the other hand we have the building innovation passport and the roadmap. These two elements can give us a deep and qualitative renovation. The next slide. Here we have also the reference. So during the IB Road project, we developed a logbook. So what our aim was to provide details about the building. So the logbook included general and administrative information about the building, building construction information, building energy performance and operation and use, of course, but also smart information. The guiding principles for establishing the roadmap, it was the best possible principle to propose a measure with the highest possible energy efficiency, individual renovation context. We consider the wishes, the needs, financial situation of the homeowners and the inhabitants and the circumstances of the buildings. The consideration also and the guiding principle was the long-term perspective, help the homeowners to understand the importance of having a long-term renovation strategy. The timing and sequencing demonstrate the homeowner that a step-by-step renovation does have several advantages, as I mentioned earlier, including, of course, the investments, the own investments when we're discussing about building renovation, but also to attract and motivate, because the roadmap should be attractive and easily understandable for the homeowners so that can be motivated to take action. As I said, it was a good opportunity, and it is a good opportunity for the Building Renovation Passport to reconnect the building with the building owner. In the next slide, the results from the first project. Current the building state, we had the information, but that was developed as a roadmap overview, providing information about the building and the whole process, a detailed roadmap on how to start the building renovation step by step, having a framework of 10, 15, even 20 years. And of course, after the detailed roadmap, we have the detailed renovation step. And this is something that was very useful for the building owners, because they can understand the process, they can understand, they can minimize the risk and have, you know, the lock-in effect of making bad decisions when it has to do with renovation, starting a renovation process without considering the other elements. So the whole process resulted in a very detailed renovation step, supporting the building owners in their decisions. In the next slide, here we can see also some elements, how the repository is working, all the elements that are included, and how we actually have now a detailed file about the building. So despite the fact that this building can be sold or used by another owners, now we can provide to them all the building information, so any decisions, future decisions, can be more easier for the new owners or for the new inhabitants. The next one, some slides that they are accessible to the IB Road project website. We produced a lot of reports on how this process can be adapted by countries. So we have considered all the elements within the national version of the IB Road. We have here a report about Bulgaria, Poland, Portugal, Belgium, and Germany, the pilot countries of the project, while in the next slide, we have also produced some training material that they are again available on the project's website, the handbook for energy auditors, and how energy auditors can benefit from the whole process of the building innovation passports, but also to train them on how to use it. But in addition, a report about the IB Road training toolkit that was produced during the project period. In the next slide, some pictures from the training sessions that happened in the pilot countries and more. Next slide. And here we have the testing results from Bulgaria, Portugal, and Poland, the pilot countries of the project. And what we have seen is that we have a 60% average improvement when we are using the building innovation passports and the whole process, instead of using the as of now renovation process. The results were very promising, and of course we consider that all this process can benefit the whole area of stakeholders that they are involved and engaged in the process of the building innovation passports and the use of them. In the next slide, some more reports, and you can find them. They are very useful policy briefs, how to protect the personal data when implementing the IB Road and the Building Innovation Passport. Roel also mentioned the GDPR issues in his presentation when he discussed the boning pass. So yes, the personal data and the data, how they are handled, is a very important element when we're discussing about building passports. In the next slide. We have now the IB Road EPC, so we had the heritage of the IB Road project. This project started in 2020. The same countries, with an addition, Spain is also here with us this time, and we have 6 pilot countries, and we are trying to see how to integrate the building innovation passports into the energy performance certificate schemes in order to decarbonize the building stock. In the next slide. You can see here the graph starting from an EPC and the very specific information that the EPC are providing to the authorities, to the building owners, to the stakeholder environment in general. Then we have the IB Road to EPC, and we are moving to the next generation of the EPC, having more information that we need and we aim to include. Information about the current energy performance, the uses of IB Road elements to expand the EPCs, on-site visiting by energy auditors is required, customized recommendations for deep renovation information to avoid the lock-in effects, owners' needs and living situation are considered, tested for single-family and multi-family and public buildings. We can evolve into the building innovation passport, and of course we consider the mandatory when building is constructed, sold or rented. The building innovation passport, then the IB Road logbook and renovation. You can see here the differences, how the evolution happened. In the next slide. What we are trying to do with the building, the IB Road to EPC, the new project, is actually to support the merging to EPC with the building renovation, to adapt the IB Road concept to the current future EPC needs, to test and evaluate the IB Road to EPC in 6 countries, and also to facilitate further exploitation in other countries as well, in EU level, if this is applicable. In the next slide, you can see here the
All right. I think we lost Alice due to internet bug. So Alice, if you hear us, please, feel free to come back and finish that very, very interesting presentation. I'm actually impressed at the steps taken by several, member states, regions, stakeholders to move ahead and plan. Exactly what we believe at EuroACE to be very important is the long-term planning and the gathering of relevant data to make sure we can have a sufficiently ambitious approach with energy renovation of buildings. If Alice is not coming back, then maybe we can start with a few questions. Please, everyone in the audience, ask your questions on the YouTube chat, please, so we can see them. And I'm gonna ask our speakers to come back with us to answer a few questions. But before that, just a few words to say that those projects clearly show the need for a holistic approach, across life cycle, across geo, across stakeholders. This is very impressive that we can have this data available to public authorities, but also to building owners. And I think this is the way this is evolving. Oh, Alice is back. Can you hear us, Alice? I don't know if you can hear us.
Can you hear me now?
I want to give you the chance to say a few words of conclusion. Your presentation was cut before we move on to the Q&A.
Okay, I just wanted to, I had only 2 slides, but in general, that was the project. So we can proceed probably with the questions. I'm sure that the presentations will be available. Apologies for that. Sometimes we cannot manage and handle what is happening with technology and the internet.
Yeah, I think it's also you know, the joy of being able to meet well apart with the downside being that sometimes it doesn't work. But thank you very much to all for your presentation. We have actually a few questions in the chat. I'm hearing an echo, so maybe we could be on mute. Yeah, thank you. There was a question, Hakim, when you presented Prior Reno, asking if you have the data on traffic within each building. So, you know, is that clear for you? The question, do you want to answer?
I'm not sure to perfectly understand the question, but
the word traffic.
We have a lot of data about the buildings. We don't have data about the traffic in general about all the 500,000 buildings in France. However, we have indeed the open data about the number of students for each school in France. And we have 60,000 schools in France, so it's a big piece of cake, and we have this kind of data to analyze the level of consumption, but it's not integrated in Prior Reno. We have this data, but it's not integrated.
Okay. Thank you, Hakim. Okay, thank you very much. While we wait for other questions from the audience, I have a question for you, Daniela. Clearly, we see that, you know, there is a lot of work being done by the European Commission around those issues. We know that there's work on the smart readiness indicator, on the digital building logbooks, and clearly those national or regional initiatives must be an inspiration. I want to ask you a bit concretely, what do you see as the next steps? How do you, what's the interactions between your program and what the Commission is doing to work on those, you know, on providing a common framework for instance, the digital building logbook?
Well, I would say the interlinkage between the policy development and then what we are doing in the funding programs is clearly the market uptake. So the support to really get that to the ground, to the different projects and to the organizations we have here today. So we have seen some great examples, and the linkage between what is already existing and what should come further in the policy development is clearly those market uptake activities, which basically support initiatives of peer learning, of engagement between organizations which are already more advanced and those which want to uptake good or best practices.
Thank you very much, Daniela. And so we still have a few questions coming up. I want to ask, you know, to our speakers that presented local experimentation, what is the key learnings that they have from those initiatives? We know that they are destined to be Europe-wide, so it's great because you are taking a step ahead. At the same time, going from a national to an EU-wide initiative might not be that easy. And maybe, Hakim, starting by you presented a wonderful data gathering project that is today, from what I understand, reserved for local authorities. So those data are only accessed by local authorities. Tomorrow is the EPBD recast. When the EPBD recast is adopted, France will have to create a publicly accessible database and then transfer it to the EU Observatory. How do you reconcile the two? Is it something you already have in mind?
We're at the beginning of the story. In fact, it's quite hard to obtain in an industrial approach data on each building. We were with data and the authorization to real energy consumption data for let's say 8 million square meters at the beginning of September, and I think with 4,500 buildings, and I think that now we are at 20 million square meters. So it's very fast, and we are concentrating our efforts at this stage on the collection of this data. Of course, the next step will be to summarize and to exchange those data for public policy purposes in France, and with the European Commission to have a clear vision of the public building consumption in France. So we don't at this stage work on this point, but it's clearly a major point, and we will certainly have future exchanges with the European Commission of this kind of data exchange. We are, of course, at disposal.
Thank you, Hakim. And we know, I mean, I'm not totally objective here, being French citizens, but France has done some impressive steps for open data. So, I mean, I'm thinking this is the next challenge, you know, the building stock with the issue of privacy versus, you know, what should be accessible. So I guess this is going to be a big debate. Maybe Roel, turning on to you, you know, the zoning pass. So it's mostly for building owners. Can you tell us a little bit how was it received? You know, is it something that you've seen how building owners you know, welcome it? Do they see an interest beyond maybe a renovation for the management of their building? Is it something that they use? You know, do you still, maybe it's a little bit early, but what's your look already on that?
Yeah, we have been assessing this topic several times already, and yeah, it's also linked a little bit to the overall development of the warning pass, because like I told in the beginning, it was quite a passive tool. I think the advantage was that from the beginning, we had it for all the existing dwellings, so it was on a very large scale. We had some campaigns about it as well. So basically, it was like on television in prime time. So basically, it should be known by people who are interested in data on their own building. But then, like after a year, we did some assessments, and we already noticed that yeah, the tool is being used. But I think we're not there yet, and yeah, in my opinion, the fact that we're making it more interactive, and also the feature of loading up your own documents is a very crucial one. So it's more developing towards a tool, and I always compare it to in the history, people they had all this paperwork at the house, and when they needed it, they couldn't find it anymore. So basically, all this information is included, is always there in a secured way, and you can add your own things. And on the other hand, also the fact that it is that you can open it up to third parties. We notice that feature is being used more and more. And yeah, on the other hand, this building passport is not a wonder tool. It's really about the awareness rising, and also the facilitating of renovation works. And basically, it is linked to other aspects of our renovation strategy. Like, for instance, next year we start implementing a renovation obligation for a house that is being sold and has only label E or F, so a bad energy performance label. These new owners need to renovate their house within 5 years, and then the information in the housing passport becomes really useful. And I think we need to look at it in that way, as a crucial tool within the renovation strategy.
Thank you. I really like this idea of awareness raising and providing a concrete tool. You know, often make the comparison, maybe not a good one, but with recycling bins. You know, we were given recycling bins with different colors, and before that we might not even have thought of recycling, and now we know we have to sort out. And it's very simple, and I think it's the same. It goes the same way for data. The more information we have, the better tools we have as building owners or even occupants, the better we can actually have an impact on its energy use. So I think it's really the core of the idea here. Alice, maybe a last question for you. In your experience, this is a very impressive projects actually. What would be your advice, for member states wanting to implement this sort of building renovation passport? What are the key elements that they should bear in mind, based on your experience? I'm not sure we still have.
Was the question for me, Clémence?
Yes, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm sorry, but in the next building we have a renovation process and we have interruptions the whole day. Apologies for this technical thing, but can you please
I can repeat the question and
yes, please.
So in your experience, what would be your main advice to member states wanting to create or implement this kind of solution?
Yeah, actually, they need to consider all the national targets, and also they need to consider how those targets, the national targets of renovation, are aligned with the EU strategy and the EU objectives. It is important that all stakeholders be in the same group, discuss and understand the value of such tools that can support in 100% the renovation process that the country wants to move forward. So it's a matter of inclusion. All stakeholders should be there. All stakeholders should understand the values. But the most important thing is to make building owners aware and also to educate them why a building, a renovated building, an energy upgraded building can benefit them in multiple ways, considering also the health factors. This is an exercise that needs to be done by the member states, and the other exercise is to sit all the stakeholders in one table, including, of course, the building owners.
Thank you very much, Alice. That was very clear. And we've reached, I think, the end of our time together. It's been very instructive. I want to thank each of you. I think we have a clear idea now that in order to reach those ambitious climate targets in the building sector, we really need to plan ahead. We need to think of the future. We need to have a holistic approach that goes beyond, pure member states, beyond each sector or stakeholders in the building sector, but involve everyone in this scheme. We need to have funding, training. We need to create the conditions so that we can gather, collect data, and then use them. So thank you very much. Thank you everyone for listening to us. And I wish you a very good day and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
See you later.
Thank you. Bye-bye.